What's going on, everybody? Cleopas Tech here, coming back at you with another video. In this video, we're going to be doing a quick comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G and the TCL Stylus 5G. Now, as always, if you do end up wanting to learn more about either phone individually, be sure to check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But with that being said, let's get into it. So with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting a 6.6-inch 120Hz Super AMOLED display with a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 390, and a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. With the TCL Stylus 5G, we're getting a really large 6.81-inch IPS LCD display. This phone also has a 1080p resolution, a PPI of 395, and a 20.5 by 9 aspect ratio. So both phones do have really good displays, but on one hand, as you can see, the TCL Stylus 5G is quite a bit larger, and this does tend to be a good thing if you're going to be on your phone a lot, especially if you're doing something like reading, for example, where you might want things to be a bit larger and easier to see. And then with a 20.5 by 9 aspect ratio versus again 19.5 by 9 with the A34 5G, the TCL Stylus 5G also has a much taller and more narrow form factor. So if you're doing something like watching videos in landscape mode, for example, this is going to give you a slightly more immersive experience and a slightly better scrolling experience too. On the other hand though, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, again this phone does have a Super AMOLED display versus an IPS LCD with the TCL Stylus 5G. And while this is definitely not bad, a Super AMOLED definitely has an advantage when it comes to stuff like colors and brightness. And with the A34 5G, the viewing angles are also a little bit better. So if you're outside in the sun, for example, or really in any kind of bright area, the A34 5G will be a bit easier to see. In addition to this, with the 120Hz refresh rate versus a typical 60Hz display with the TCL Stylus 5G, the movement on the screen with the A34 5G is going to be a bit faster and smoother, and this is going to make the phone feel a bit more premium to use. So overall, if you are looking for a phone that has a really nice display, you really won't go wrong with either phone here. But if you tend to like a larger display, then you might want to go with the TCL Stylus 5G. But if you'd rather have better image quality instead, the A34 5G will have an advantage. Now for storage, both phones are getting 128GB of internal storage with microSD card expansion, so definitely a great amount of storage. For the average user, you're probably not going to fill this up. And of course, the microSD card expansion doesn't hurt either. For security features, both phones have Face Unlock, and they both have fingerprint scanners. With the A34 5G, it's right here in the display, so definitely nice and premium looking. And with the TCL Stylus 5G, it's on the power key. But starting with the A34 5G, let's give them a try. There we go, one more time. And there we go. And now for the TCL Stylus 5G. There we go. One more time. And there we go. So as you can see there, both fingerprint scanners were real fast and responsive. No issues at all. And again, both phones have Face Unlock too, so if you want to use that instead, you always can. Now for the camera setups here, with the A34 5G, up front, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a triple camera setup with a 48 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, and a 5 megapixel macro camera. And then for video, the A34 5G has a max recording quality of 4K in both the rear and front cameras, so definitely nice to see there. With the TCL Stylus 5G, up front, we got a 13 megapixel selfie camera. Then on the back, we got a quad camera setup with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel macro camera, and a 2 megapixel depth sensing camera. And then for video, the TCL Stylus 5G does max out at 1080p in both the rear and front cameras, so no 4K here. Now overall, both phones do have really good camera setups, and for the average user, I feel like you're really not going to go wrong with either phone here. They both have pretty much every feature you would typically find in a mid-range phone, including an ultra wide camera and a macro camera, so definitely great there. And when it comes to photo quality for typical daily use, again, either phone will be perfectly fine. That being said though, between the two, the photo quality we get with the A34 5G is honestly a bit better. Now, it's not really an insane difference, and again, for the average user, the TCL Stylus 5G is still going to be perfectly fine if you're doing stuff like taking photos for Instagram, for example, or maybe using Snapchat, or sending photos to friends and family, really pretty much anything you could think of. The TCL Stylus 5G will still at least get the job done, but with the A34 5G, the pictures in general are just a little bit better. And again, this phone can record 4K videos too, so if you are recording a lot of videos, maybe you're making YouTube videos, for example, for that kind of thing, being able to record 4K videos, or at least having the option to, especially in this price range, is definitely a nice thing. Now to give you an idea of what they can do, first, here's some pictures taken with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G. Overall, definitely great quality, especially considering this is really only a $330 phone. So while it's definitely not like top of the line flagship quality, for more of an affordable affordable mid-range phone, it definitely does get the job done, and for pretty much any kind of situation, whether you're doing a lot of social media kind of stuff or just casually sending photos to friends and family, regardless, the A34 5G will get the job done just fine. And then here's some pictures taken with the TCL Stylus 5G, and while again I feel like the A34 is just a bit better, the TCL Stylus 5G is honestly really not that far behind. And again, for the average user, for pretty much anything you might be doing with your camera, the TCL Stylus 5G will get the job done too. So again, if you are looking for a more affordable phone that has a nice camera, you're really not going to go wrong with either one here. But again, remember, the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G can also record 4K videos, and the TCL Stylus 5G can, and while not everyone is going to be using this feature, if you are recording a lot of videos, being able to record in 4K when you want is definitely a nice option to have, so if that is something that matters to you, definitely keep this in mind. Now when it comes to RAM and processor, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting 6GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 1080 processor. With the TCL Stylus 5G, this phone is getting 4GB of RAM with the MediaTek Dimensity 700. So in general, both phones do have pretty good performance, and for the average user, for more casual daily activities like web browsing, social media, streaming content like videos and music, and maybe some light mobile gaming, either phone will get the job done just fine. But also keep in mind between the two, the A34 5G is significantly faster. Now, it's not like flagship level per se, so definitely don't get this phone expecting it to be as fast as something like a Samsung Galaxy S21 FE or a Google Pixel 6a, because while it is closer to that level than your average mid-range phone, it's still not quite there. But compared to the TCL Stylus 5G, the A34 5G again is significantly faster, so if you're going to be on your phone a bit more, the A34 5G is probably a better choice for you. But again, for more average, moderate use, the TCL Stylus 5G is perfectly fine, and in my experience, I haven't had any performance issues, and this is definitely not a slow phone. So I feel like for most people, as long as you're not going to be like on your phone all day, especially doing more demanding activities, the TCL Stylus 5G will still get the job done. Now I did run a benchmark test on each phone using Geekbench 6, and here are the results I got. So again, as you can see here, the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G does have a significant advantage, but really the TCL Stylus 5G is still not slow by any means. So again, if you're really not going to be on your phone a ton and you're really just doing regular activities anyway, then this phone will be perfectly fine. But if you are a bit more of a heavy user, then you might want to go with the A34 5G instead. Now for the batteries, with the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G, we're getting a 5000 mAh battery that supports 25W fast charging, and with the TCL Stylus 5G, we're getting a 4000 mAh battery that supports 18W fast charging. So clearly here in pretty much every way, the A34 5G has a much better battery. So if battery life and longevity and charging speed and all that is important to you, then you're definitely going to want to go with the A34 5G. But I will say, despite being significantly smaller, the battery we get with the TCL Stylus 5G in my experience is not really terrible, and if you really don't need your phone to last all day without charging, then you can probably get by with it. So if you're maybe around a charger a decent amount of time during the day, then I personally wouldn't really worry about it. But of course, if you really want the best battery between the two, the A34 5G is clearly the better choice here. For the software, with the A34 5G, we are getting Android 13, and in addition to this, keep in mind Samsung has really good software support, so with this phone you can also expect several other major updates in the future. On the other hand, with the TCL Stylus 5G, unfortunately this phone still only has Android 12, and granted at this point it's not terrible, but still, if you do want the latest version of Android and the best software support, I would definitely go with the A34 5G. As far as other features go, both phones do have NFC, so if you like to use tap and pay, either phone can use this feature no problem. But also keep in mind, unfortunately, the A34 5G does not have a headphone jack, and while I don't think this is really going to be a deal breaker for most people, if you do have normal wired headphones, it can be kind of annoying, because while you can technically use them with this phone, you will of course need an adapter. On the other hand, the TCL Stylus 5G does have one, so definitely keep that in mind. And in addition to this, of course, as the name of the phone suggests, the TCL Stylus 5G does in fact have a stylus, which obviously the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G doesn't. Now, it's definitely not the best stylus in the world, but for more casual stuff, it does get the job done. It's decently responsive, and while you're probably not going to want to do actual art on it, if you want to take handwritten notes and navigate through your display and stuff like that, it does get the job done just fine. And in this price range, you really don't have a whole lot of options when it comes to phones that actually have styluses. So if you do want this feature, then this phone really is a great choice. But in conclusion, which of these phones is better? In general, in almost every way, I would say the Samsung Galaxy A34 5G is the better device here, despite the TCL Stylus 5G being quite a bit larger, which could be a better thing for you if you typically like a larger display. The A34 5G does have a decently large display too, and I really do think the image quality is quite a bit better with this phone, and it does feel a lot more premium too. The A34 5G also has a higher quality camera that can record 4K videos, significantly better performance, a much larger battery, a newer version of Android, and much better software support. And while it is a little bit more expensive, honestly at $327, $97 factory unlocked. With this phone, I really do think that for the money, we are getting quite a bit of value here. So if you really want to maximize the value and features you get for the money, I would go with the A34 5G. But on the other hand, the TCL Stylus 5G is definitely not a bad phone. It's also super affordable. In fact, with the right carrier deals, you could probably even get this phone for free. It also does have a really nice display. And again, for a lot of people, having a larger display like this is definitely a great thing. It also has plenty of storage, just like the A34. The camera, while not being quite as good, is still pretty good for the average user. Same with the performance. Sure, it's not the fastest phone, but for most people, it will at least get the job done. And then it also has features like NFC and a stylus. So in general, if you do want the better phone between the two, definitely go for the A34 5G. But if you're really just looking for something more affordable for more basic activities, the TCL Stylus 5G is definitely still worth considering. Now once again, if you do want to learn more about either phone individually, definitely check out the description, where I am linking to several other videos about them, as well as some information about pricing, availability, and some of my favorite smartphone accessories. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to follow Kalipis Tech on Twitter and Instagram. And as always, I will see you in the next video.